Previously on Unranked.
I said thank you, but the biggest box here is 14 inches by 14 inches by 8, which is nowhere near big enough. They say you can simply put it on the box. Just make sure that it's covered with box. I say, I can.
Wait, read that line again.
Yeah, read that
line
line
again. Read that line again.
This is verbatim. You can simply put it on the box. You can simply put it on the box. Just make sure that it's covered with box.
The best. That's so good.
Hello and welcome to the Unranked Podcast. This is episode 431. I am Christian Humes here, and we do not have Tom or Alex this week. That's right. Alex is traveling for work, and Tom is traveling for work. He's actually here in Los Angeles at Summer Games Fest right now. We were going to try and do something late Tuesday night. Alex had to cancel. Tom was busy. And I said, forget about it. I'll just do a solo pod on Friday. So here we are. I'm going to go over some of these Summer Games Fest announcements, talk about some of the movies I saw this week, and it'll be short and sweet. But first things first, as we always do at the start of a podcast, it's 431st episode, which means we're going to talk about the 431st Pokemon. And that today is Glameow. Alex isn't here to incorrectly pronounce it, so I'll give it my best. Tuna? Glameow. Glameow. I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. All right, let's talk about what this Pokemon is. It's a normal type Pokemon. It's very much a cat. It's a gray, just looks like a little gray house cat. It's got kind of big winged ears. It's got white tips on its ears. It's got a white fluffy tail just at the end, and little white socks on its feet. You should be able to kind of picture it pretty well based on that. Its tail, interesting though, is long and corkscrewed, which is surprising because you can almost see a cloud-like nature in this Pokemon's design, but with there being no air typing or anything like that, it is just a normal type Pokemon. But let's go ahead and discuss maybe its origin and its name origin and see if we can read a little bit further into this Pokemon. So Glameow seems to be based on a domestic cat and a rhythmic gymnast, specifically a ribbon gymnast. Okay, so that's where you get the corkscrew tail. Its head being shaped like the crescent moon may allude to the nocturnal lifestyle of cats. Glameow's tail, which consists of a white fluff on a spring, may be based on a type of cat toy. All right, that makes total sense now. My cat loves those kinds of cat's toys. So yeah, perfect. Name origin, Glameow may be a combination of glamour and meow, which makes sense. Design-wise, straightforward. You know exactly what this is. It is a normal type Pokemon. Let's see if there's anything interesting in the Pokedex. So I'm going to read from Legends of Arceus, which says, it bewitches humans with its helical tail and piercing gaze. Its hidden claws are quite sharp as well, making this Pokemon an exceedingly tricky opponent if antagonized. I mean, that's some good flavor text. That's adding some good information. That's telling us about the Pokemon. It's got a bit of an attitude, which sort of makes sense. It is a cat. I like its sprite animations. I think this sort of bluish gray that it gets in the Game Boy Color and DS games is nice on the sprite, and the palette swap that this one gets for its shiny is pretty good. It's a sort of pinkish purple color, I would say. So it goes from a bluish gray to a pinkish purple, and I think that fits especially the name Glameow quite well. It does have an evolution, which we'll talk about next week. It is a normal leveling up evolution, which should be no surprise for a normal type Pokemon. Beyond that, I think we should take a look at this list and do something interesting, which is put it a lot higher than maybe it deserves to be, because no one's here to tell me no. But how high is that? I don't want to betray the list. It'll make Alex so mad if I even put this above Shinx. So I'm going to. Turtwig, Chimchar. I think we're going to put this right above Prinplup at 10. All right, there it is, Glameow, the decided 10th Pokemon on our list. If Alex or Tom disagree, well, they should have been here. So that's how that goes. We'll change that, I'm sure, later on. I mean, I think it's a cooler design than Prinplup, personally. I don't actually know. There's a lot of starter bias on this list. There's a lot that's going to change, I think, when we get to the end of this. You know what? 10's a little high. I want to put it below Weasel, actually. We're going to give it the 12th spot. I can't even do that to this list. That's a good spot. It's a cool Pokemon. It's basic, though. So it shouldn't be in the top 10. Even if it's got a cool attitude. All right. So since we last had the show, not a whole lot has happened. I got food poisoning the other day, which was a bummer because I was going to go out and see Tom, and I could have seen Gio. It sounds like they got together, but I was not able to attend. However, I have done a few things since last week. I went to the movies twice this last weekend. I saw 2 different films I want to talk about, as well as a third at home this week. But briefly before that, I want to talk about Star Wars: The Acolyte. And then after I talk about these shows and movies, we're going to jump into my basic thoughts on the Summer Games Fest, which I thought in general went pretty well, even though there weren't a ton of things I was personally excited about. And then we're going to call it. That's going to be an episode. It's going to be short and sweet today. I'm not going to drown you guys out with news because you're probably reading about that stuff anyway. However, I do want to talk about the games that I personally found interesting and I'm excited for. Spoilers, it's Alan Wake 2 DLC. But first, Star Wars: The Acolyte. So I have seen the first 2 episodes, which dropped this week. I'm, again, really happy that Disney continues to do weekly drops for shows. I find personally that I don't want this stuff to just like be here and gone as much as it can be enjoyable to binge. If you want to binge, then just wait till it's all out or wait till it's near done and then start. I don't like feeling like something comes out and then I have to avoid the internet because I don't want to be spoiled, which has happened before with plenty of other properties when they are available all at once. I don't personally care so much about the conversation being spread out as much as I care about people having time to actually get to it and not feel like, all right, well, I better watch it all now before someone else ruins it for me. I think that is really where I fall on the dropping nature. I know Alex has been speaking recently a lot about missing the weekly show, the weekly chat, although that's more with the old school 20+ episode seasons, which I think is a little too large. I love it when we get like a nice 10 to 12 episode show. I think The Acolyte's only 8, so a little on the shorter side, but I'd rather they not overstay their welcome. So if they only have 8 episodes worth of content, I'd rather still get 8 episodes of content, especially for something that's clearly, very expensive to produce. The costumes have been great. So, gosh, the couple of things that I took of note, let me see, because I did write a couple things down so that I didn't have to just go off the dome on this. So there were just a handful of things that I think are really of note here. The first episode, albeit a little slow, spoilers if you haven't seen The Acolyte. I'm only going to talk about this for about 5 minutes, so if you just want to skip forward, if you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and do that. But the first episode, a little slow, at least to build, even though it does have that great action set piece at the beginning. I think we all, many of us, were able to guess what may or may not happen with that action scene. So it wasn't a big deal, although I was a little disappointed by the outcome of it. Ultimately, as the episode progressed, though, seeing our antagonist, or whom we thought the antagonist was in the episode, I thought that was an interesting take because it feels like this is a theme that we've seen in Star Wars when it comes to, again, spoilers, twins. I actually expected, for a moment, I expected we were going to see something different. Because one of the great things about the High Republic era and an era before, the Jedi fall is you should have a lot of people who are incredibly well trained. It's not as if Darth Vader was so unbelievably powerful that he couldn't be stopped, or the Emperor, or things like that, because we know Ahsoka Tano goes head to head with him and really holds her own. It's that the Jedi Order is decimated. They are actually far worse than that. It's more like the opposite. They're only left to less than 10% of Jedi that exist from prior to the Purge and Order 66. So there wasn't a force to reckon with Vader, the Emperor, and the just sheer amount of clone troopers that there were. So there are going to be incredibly powerful force users prior to the Chosen One or the Emperor or Yoda that existed and could do a lot of crazy things. And one cool thing that we haven't yet seen in Star Wars, it used to be in the old legends. One thing that Luke was able to do was not necessarily to project his image like we saw in The Last Jedi, which I did think was very cool. I did like some of the new Force stuff, like the Force flashing that Rey and Kylo did was also great. But Luke was able to actually like change his image. He could project a different image. So I was actually hoping it wasn't going to be a reveal of a twin. I was hoping that we were going to see someone else using her face to corrupt. It felt like a purposeful corruption that was being planned to try and unwind the Jedi. And so I think it's interesting, especially where episode 2 ends. Again, spoilers. Finding out the villain didn't know that she was alive, which is a little bit hard to reckon with, because it feels like for them to know so much about the Jedi who had trained her and everything, this was all just a misunderstanding in many ways. And so obviously we're just dealing with not enough information to go on, but so far the twist isn't doing all that much for me. I thought maybe they could have gone a different route with it, but they've been showed all their cards. So once they do, perhaps there'll be more enticing information there. Yord seems a little trigger happy. If I want to talk about Yord for a second here, everyone wants to talk about his Killmonger cut, whatever. He seems a little trigger happy. I mean, our man from Squid Game was holding May down, and Yord, he's reaching for his saber. He's always getting this. Like, Yord is definitely like a guy who's ready to fight. Like, he's been waiting to fight. He's got the sweet yellow saber, big fan of the yellow saber. Yord's not making me super happy. I mean, really, like, the main characters, Osha and her little pip droid, which fucking cool. Pip droid is super cool. I want a great Lego of that can open and change shape and shit. That would be very nice. I would buy that. Make it. But Yord's a little disappointing. And I can't remember what the younger girl's character's name was, the one who played was it X-23 or whatever her name was in Logan. She's the alien Jedi Padawan in this. She's fine. She's been fine. Like, she hasn't had any super great moments yet. She had a great plan to enact, which sort of showed Yord likes to impose the authority of the Jedi more than it necessarily showed her cleverness, but I suppose you could say it did both. I expect her to get like a cool moment at some point or another, especially when we're dealing with a character who is possibly, clearly going to be a protagonist, and another character who is an antagonist, who were both, something happened to them when they were young women and now they're adults. And now to have this other young woman who's Padawan, witness whatever is going to take place, there's got to be some kind of parallels that they're going to be setting up there. So I'm curious to see how that works. And I did like her questioning of the Jedi Master when she was like, kind of like, well, why do you care so much about this person? Shouldn't we let go of our attachments? And he talks about how history is important. And truly, that's one problem I always had with the Jedi and their depiction is, You know, the idea of having no attachments is, I think, an easy path to corruption, just as much as having attachments are. And Star Wars really and the Jedi should always be about balance. And so that's where like High Republic, I'm excited about. I think it could be really cool, but I'm personally still more interested in what happened after the rise of Skywalker and what a new Jedi Order or a new, maybe they're not even going to be called Jedi anymore, but what the next step for Force users in the universe are, because clearly the Jedi got too big for their britches as well, and that's why they fell. You know, they were too easy to corrupt. They fell into these stale, stagnant ways. They didn't change with the times the way they needed to. So I think there's gonna be something cool and interesting that happens in this series. Obviously, everyone's excited for the light whip. But you know, more remains to be seen. It's been a bit of a slow burn, but I'm enjoying it. Next, I want to talk about Furiosa. So I saw Mad Max Furiosa. Again, spoilers. This is going to be a little bit more brief. Very, very, very different movie than I expected. So I watched the first trailer. A lot of times now I even try to avoid full-on trailers if I can. I just prefer to go in without expectations. Here's a reason why. The movie was far less about Anya Taylor-Joy's Furiosa character than it was about Chris Hemsworth's character, Dr. Dementis. And part of the reason I say that is Anya Taylor-Joy is only in about half of the movie. For a significant time in the film, which I think runs a little too long, it's about 2.5 hours. I don't know if Anya Taylor-Joy shows up until at least an hour in the film. It takes place with her as a child, where that you know it's not Anya Taylor-Joy playing this character for a very long time. And Chris Hemsworth's Dr. Dementis character, you know, they capture her and she's kind of like tortured and ravaged until she eventually ends up in the hands of the antagonist from the previous Mad Max film. And yeah, I think it was good. It wasn't as good as the previous Mad Max movie. Dr. Dementis was a disgusting character to watch. I mean, it was strange how much Chris Hemsworth, Dr. Dementis, was the main character as much and at times more than Anya Taylor-Joy's. There is, when she becomes the lead, a sort of switch over where we're going to see you see a lot less of his character and you start to see a lot more of hers. And the story does become much more about her. But you've already spent like an hour in the film where, you know, she's just a child during that. And as much as like she is the compelling part of this because she's not a piece of shit like Dr. Dementis is, Chris Hemsworth is doing a lot of the work, I feel like, leading up to that. The action is great. The world is disgusting. And in many ways, it feels like a film that was actually like world building for the Mad Max series. It like really explains and shows off Gastown and Bullet Town. So it kind of made the world feel a lot more alive and serves as an overall prequel to Fury Road. But I do think like there was something with the marketing. I think something with the way that it was edited that I think it could have been a little bit more focused. So it could have been, a bit shorter. I am under the assumption now, and I really believe this, that as someone who I go to the movies a lot. You know, I have AMC A-list, so I go at least 2 to 3 times a month. Sometimes I go once a week. Sometimes more, but I'd say I average like 3 times a month. Most people don't. Most people go to the movies maybe like once a year. Some people go less than once a year. A lot of people. Plenty of people that don't go at all anymore. And I think when they look up a movie and they see it's 2.5 hours and they know there's going to be another 25 minutes of ads on top of that, no one's ready to sit for 30 minutes, for 3 hours. No one wants to sit for 3 hours. No one wants to go and spend that much money. And it's a big commitment for something unless it's, a movie that's hotly anticipated. The Mad Max franchise, as well as it did with Fury Road, I don't think that it's ever been that. And so I think for what this movie was, they should have cut a chunk of it down, because it gets a little relentless. And as much as there was no point in which I was bored, there were plenty of times, especially getting towards the end, where I was looking at my watch, kind of thinking like, Wow, there's still a lot more that has to happen here because there's, it was like there's still an hour and a half left. There's still like essentially a whole movie left, an hour into it. And when you're going through and you're watching that much on screen, like violence or gore, there's the sound editing is incredible, the design is incredible, but it is overstimulating, I think, for a lot of people. So for that length of time, it's a big ask. That being said, I do think if you liked the last Mad Max, you should see this in theaters. I did overall like and enjoy it, but I think it's a lot to ask people to sit and go in a theater for, is kind of like my lasting taste from it. Now, alternatively, didn't even know that this was going to be in theaters. I saw a trailer for this forever ago. Originally, this movie was going to be a Disney Plus exclusive, and then, they're hoping maybe this can be award eligible, so they put it in theaters, limited time. It's only there for 2 weeks. So if you're listening to this now, it's the last week where you can go see it. It's Young Woman in the Sea. It's starring Daisy Ridley. It is a sports movie. It is a, sports. It's based on a true story. It's about a woman named Trudy, who is the first woman to swim the English Channel. It was in 1926, so it is a period piece. But it's really compelling. I mean, the introduction to the movie, I didn't really know anything about this character. About this person in history. I didn't know anything about the story other than I had heard at some point in my life about, the first woman who did it, and it was a big deal. Apparently, like, was like the athlete of athletes, and is still considered one of the greatest athletes of all time, by many. Even by Babe Ruth even ends up changing his mind in this movie. A lot of people at the time, though, surprise, surprise, 1926, and leading up to it is, where the majority of the movie takes place, is her going from a child to leading up to doing the swim. Didn't want women to compete in athletics of any kind. In fact, women weren't even taught how to swim when she was growing up, which is a big, important piece to how the movie starts. It is one of those films about a person in history who defies all odds, which can be like really uplifting and engaging and help you, like it's inspiring, right? It's a really inspiring story. Here she is, this kid, she's the daughter of a butcher. She beats the measles, which she has as a child, and it is, not something that is easy to beat back then. You know, they expected her to never, get through that at the time, and then there were a lot of chances like, oh, you could lose your hearing if you go in the water because of the lasting effects of her measles. And women didn't know how to swim, and she wasn't allowed to swim in the public pools because she was a woman, and all of these things. And yet she became the greatest swimmer, the greatest female swimmer of all time, at least in her time. And she did something that is, by most standards, considered to be inconceivably difficult. The English Channel, which when you do get to it in the film, they do a wonderful job of portraying it as almost a character, like it's living. Because leading up to it, you see a young Trudy, she goes and she sees it in the film, and she's watching in a theater. Someone just swam the English Channel. It's the fifth man to ever do it. And they talk about how treacherous and dangerous it is. It is something that it's not, a jaunt. It's not like trying to run a marathon. It is beyond dangerous. And the majority, like a lot of the people who do it would die. A lot of the people who would attempt it, there were many lost bodies at sea that were never recovered or found. So it is a very compelling, inspiring story. It's going to be on Disney Plus soon. So if you don't have a chance to see it while its very limited run is in theaters, I highly recommend it, especially if you're someone who's a fan of, inspiring sports stories, especially ones, obviously, of course, based on a true story. Absolutely watch it, because I walked out of this like in the best mood. It was great. I had an absolutely great time. Daisy Ridley kills it. I think the set design, Christopher Eccleston's in this. He does a great job. He plays a real scumbag. Honestly, very, very, very good movie. So highly think you should check that out. And the last movie I want to briefly talk about with you is The Congo. That's right, 1995's The Congo, which is based on Michael Crichton's book, Congo. So I rewatched this just the other day with my friend Steven. Steven is a huge Michael Crichton fan. He actually does a podcast called See Jurassic Right. He's very much in the Jurassic fan sphere, I guess you could say. So big Crichton heads, the two of us. I hadn't seen this since I was a kid. This was a movie I watched a bunch when I was a kid, but I have not seen it in a very long time. To the extent that I did not know really what happened in it anymore. I had almost completely forgotten the majority of the plot points in this film. So let me briefly tell you about the Congo. There are kind of three merging stories taking place in this film at once. It is very much an ensemble cast. It is a little bit like, different groups of people come together and they go to this not an island, so they're going to Africa, they're going to Congo, but they go to a jungle, right? Somewhere that is mysterious. And it is sort of a deconstruction of sort of the white colonial adventure movie in a lot of ways, because the main character is a woman and the Ernie Hudson plays like the secondary antagonist to who the other main character is, who is sort of he's a primatologist. And this is during an era of, if everyone remembers, Coco the sign language gorilla. So they have a gorilla in the movie who has a sort of robotic arm on and can do sign language, and the robotic arm will then translate that into words so he can talk to the gorilla. During the film, the gorilla is painting these things on the wall, and he realizes, oh, it's painting the jungle. I want to take the gorilla to the jungle. The gorilla wants to go to the jungle. What he is hoping to do is to then use the gorilla to then communicate to the other gorillas. Have this gorilla that learns sign language teach the other gorilla sign language, and then possibly we'd be able to communicate with those animals. Very weird and kind of interesting. You would think this character typically would have been like the lead, but they are very tertiary, I think, overall. And other than like the end of the film where this has a payoff, they fall into the background. Whereas the other two leads are, starring Ernie Hudson and Laura Linney, who plays, so she was like not in the CIA with quotes, and she works for a communications company, which is supposed to be kind of like InGen. It's kind of like the Jurassic Park company. Her fiance is in the Congo, and they're looking for a rare blue diamond that would enable this special communications laser. And when they believe they find it, during their video feed, Laura Linney's character is back in America. They get attacked, and there's like a freeze frame of this gray ape, and no one knows, are they dead or are they alive? So she's going to be sent to the Congo to go and see if they can recover, her fiance, see if he's alive, see if they can get the diamond, bring the laser back. Her fiance's husband is the guy who runs the communications company, and he's just like this awful, like oil baron, like Bond villain kind of, capitalist bastard who doesn't even show any concern for his own son's death. He just cares about getting the blue diamond back. So she's very much like, I'm going to get my fiance back. I don't give a fuck about your laser. And if you make it clear to me that you're here for the money and you don't give a shit about your son possibly being dead, you ain't ever getting it. So sort of a weird kind of build in for that dynamic. But overall, the most interesting aspect is this third character who's played by Tim Curry, and he is an Eastern European adventurer who is looking for the lost city of Zing, and they have an incredible like diamond collection, and it's guarded like it's a lost city that's like guarding this hidden treasure. So they're all actually looking for the same place, and they all end up together. This movie, if you haven't guessed, is kind of universally panned. It has a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I think what's interesting about that is if you go back and you watch it now, it's very entertaining. And it has all the makings of a great classic Michael Crichton. Like, this could have been a Spielberg inspired, like, kind of film. It was produced by Kathleen Kennedy. However, the direction isn't great. It doesn't have, a John Williams score. So the music is forgettable at best. Um, and the thing I think that it's missing is the connective threads. There was no, in Jurassic Park, you have all these miniature kind of edutainment motifs where they're going to explain something to you and set something up for you several times. So when you get the payoff, you understand what's happening, you understand why something is important. Whereas in the Congo, the Congo itself is actually the, adventure and the journey. It is this danger, and it is like a character in the film. But unlike, the movie I just talked about, Young Woman in the Sea, where the English Channel is this character and it's been talked about, and the mystique of it is it's dangerous, and all the different perils. They even talk about the different stages you're gonna have to overcome in the English Channel. The Congo, they don't do that. You kind of get there and you're going from one scene to the next, and it's like whiplash, and nothing is properly delivered, or you're never properly prepared for anything. And so, when they're on boats and a hippo attacks, it's not engaging or exciting the way it should be. There's no tension leading into that scene. There were a number of simple ways they could have done that. If you get to the river, you hear about the hippos ahead of time. You hear like, well, when we get to here, we're going to have to cross this river, and that's going to be one of the most dangerous parts. Why? Because of the hippos, this, that, and the other, right? Maybe when they start scouting, all right, we're going at night. The hippos are going to be the most quiet. We have to be quiet. You set these things up. There was none of it. They just get on the boats, or in the boats, suddenly a hippo pops up. Oh, a hippo. And so it's one of these movies that I looked at and I just think this is a movie that has so much potential to be great, but is incredibly middling. I think it's awesome to watch now because it's short. It's an hour and a half. It's absolutely ridiculous. Tim Curry has an absolute cartoon fucking Eastern European accent. So you can enjoy it for a lot of different reasons today. But I think they should remake it. I think they should remake the Congo. The 1995 Congo should be, don't use this, but remake the story from the book today. And I think you have a hit on your hands. I do. I think there is something here, but it needs all of those pieces that this doesn't have. This kind of sold itself as a monster movie with these, scary gray gorillas that are guarding this treasure, who don't show up till the last, 10 minutes or so of the movie, which was the wrong way to go about it. The right way to go about it was to be about the Congo. They need to properly introduce the treasure, properly introduce the treasure hunter, properly introduce all of the perils of the Congo, have the right music, have the right direction. And it's interesting to see a film that has all the right story ideas, a lot of the right pieces. I mean, it has the actors. Laura Linney, Ernie Hudson, and Tim Curry did a great job with their material. Well, Tim Curry's accent, man, that really held him back. But it was everything else surrounding the movie and the way they decided to make the movie versus the story that they had. That kind of failed it. That being said, I enjoyed the hell out of watching it. This is definitely now one of my favorite bad movies. So if you're looking for a good bad movie, go watch Congo. It's awesome. It's great. All right. So that's everything that I've seen recently that I wanted to get into. And now let's talk about some games, because this last week all I've been playing is Donkey Kong. Oh, okay, real quick. Destiny 2. The DLC came out. Pretty good. Got it started. Haven't dipped my toes very far into it because the boys are away. And although I want to play, I don't want to. Destiny's not a game I really like solo. So I kind of just got in there, mucked about a little bit, set a new build for my character, redesigned the character a little bit, my look and my appearance. Did a couple missions, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to stop because this is the final major DLC. So I figure I should leave it for a little co-op action. Let's talk about Summer Games Fest. First thing I want to say, I was surprised that Jeff actually mentioned all the layoffs that have happened in the industry, albeit brief, and then having to throw to now let's celebrate some games. But like again, how do you can't please everyone, right? I bet someone will have something critical to say about that. But when he doesn't say anything, then everyone has something critical to say about it. So I'm glad he at least made of note of it. I don't know whether that's something you do at the beginning or the end of the show, because throwing to it is awkward and ending on it is awkward. So I think he probably did the best you could with something that sucks, and I'm glad he acknowledged it. And as he did, the impossible, let's go ahead and move on, which I'll do now too. The first game they showed, which I want to talk about very quickly, is Lego Horizon Adventures, which is based on the Horizon video game series on PlayStation. I am unsure who this is for. So I didn't finish Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't finish my Horizon PSVR title, which, by the way, was actually like really cool. I might actually think that this is like the coolest looking thing Horizon has done, but I still don't know how much I really feel like playing it, because I'm not that invested in the Horizon lore. I'm interested in the live action series they're making, because I think like it's an aesthetic more than it is a really like compelling game. But I was just surprised by this, which is why I thought it was of no. I know it's been rumored, I know it's been like leaked, but just seeing it and seeing the gameplay and seeing like the fidelity of it, which by the way, like it looks really good, like visually speaking. I'm curious to see how well this does, because Horizon seems like this franchise that Sony keeps putting more and more money into, but I don't like I just might not be in the circle of people who love Horizon, is what that might mean. So we'll see. And it's interesting. It's on Switch, PC, and PS5. No Xbox. Not a big surprise. But the Switch I thought was interesting, because I wonder how many people are going to get this for their kids on a Switch that don't have a PlayStation. And then like their kids, do they know what Horizon is? Do they care? Or do they just play because it looks cool and it's Lego, which like might be the answer. I don't know. No Room for Hell 2? Don't care. Sorry. Just I think I've realized Left 4 Dead style games or something I'm probably not going to do anymore, because you really need a squad of people to play with, and at my age it is very difficult to have the right people at the right time to be able to do that. And if you don't do it enough, then that's the bigger thing. Is it's the kind of game that if you're not doing enough, you're not gonna do well either. It's something you need to do a lot. And that's why it was great when I was in my early 20s, when Left 4 Dead was out, and I was playing that all the time, and I had all the free time in the world, and no one else had responsibilities either, and we could play it all the time. It was awesome. And then when that kind of time in your life changed, the games that you play change. And so I bet that's a great game for the people who have the time for it, but it's not something I'm gonna play. Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. So okay, Quidditch is both one of the coolest fake sports and one of the worst fake sports that exists, because the game doesn't make any sense, because one person just gets the snitch and the other team wins. I do not know how this works. I'm assuming that they have some kind of alter to the scoring system so that it is not going to be the case, or that getting the snitch is such a near impossible task that you're going to end up losing if you don't kind of ignore it. So then like what? I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know who this is for. This feels like a game that should have came out a long time ago, when Harry Potter was less divisive, and when I think sports games were more like fun and arcadey and not like Sims. Because I also feel like the sports gaming, like the sports gamer doesn't want fake arcadey games anymore, which is why like I don't get racing games that I really enjoy. Like it's been a long time because everything is a simulation racer now. Everything feels like it's real cars and they're not fun to drive. Or they do the opposite and they go too far with it and it's not what I'm looking for. You know, everything is a little too hotly competitive. The days of like a rush and, you know, cruising are kind of long gone from the world, which I think is unfortunate. Um, okay, Cuff Bust I thought looked dope as hell. Cuff Bust is, I mean, well, first of all, I think this was, yeah, okay. So this was a one person made this game, this single developer. Pretty amazing. It is a cooperative prison break game. That's like kind of all you would need to tell me without even showing me the game, and I would probably tell you I'm in. Like I like the escapists, you know, I like games like that. And this being first person and having this like really goofy, wild art style where you're playing as these sort of alien prisoners, you're working together, bust out of the prison. It seems dope as hell. So that looks like a really fun game. I'm probably not going to play it till it comes to a console though. Like just realistically speaking. That's not true. I could use Steam Deck. I'll probably play it on Steam Deck if it runs. But this looks fun as hell. Cuff Bus looks dope. I hope it has like good matchmaking and you don't have to have a large party to play it well. Star Wars Outlaws. I mean, obviously, I talked about the Acolyte quite a bit. I love Star Wars. It's no lie. Everyone here knows it. I'm gonna go to so Tom and I are Tom's last day here is on Monday, and when he finishes with his last like convention thing, the Ubisoft show, I'm gonna pick him up and we're gonna go to Disney for the day, which is gonna be pretty sick. We're gonna do like just a quick Disney run, get some rides in, go to the Star Wars area. Then I'm gonna drop him off at LAX. So that's gonna be a quick little jaunt down to Disneyland. Star Wars Outlaws looked fucking great. It looked really good. I'm very excited to see how it like runs and performs. I still think their pricing model for like the DLC, no, what was it? The like early release stuff, and we don't even know to like what extent the Java mission and everything is like available to you. I think that stuff seems like that sucks, but the game looks really good. Um, there isn't too much to say beyond that. I mean, I won't lie. I'm probably gonna play the whole game like wishing I would get some kind of lightsaber or something because it's just like how you in Star Wars have a lightsaber. But maybe we'll get like a vibro sword or one of those like riot batons or something. Like any of that might be pretty sweet. So yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna skip some of the stuff. I don't play Civilization. Good for the people that do. I'm not a JRPG person, so Metaphor Ray Fantasio seems like a game that Tom will play for a few hours and then not finish. Batman Arkham Shadow is the VR game that's coming to Oculus. I will play it maybe when it's available. Again, just mostly showing like video clips and not like showing off gameplay is just never gonna really sell me on something. So not doesn't do a whole lot for me. Skip some of these, keep going. Okay, Fatal Fury. Coming back is weird. That was a surprise that we're getting more Fatal Fury. All right, here we go. Power Rangers, Rita's Rewind. That's the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is the TMNT beat 'em up brawler with Power Rangers. That is exactly what this game looks like. I looks to play it. The music looked dope. The art looked dope. The sound design sounded great. I'm gonna buy this. I'm absolutely gonna buy this. I hope to sit down with Tom and Alex when this comes out and just play straight through it like we did with TMNT. Hell yeah. Tom's gonna be most excited for it. I was never a big Power Rangers guy. That being said, I still do get, you know, some fun out of it. And the style of this was pretty slick all around. So I'm very excited for that. It's a lot of cozy games, a lot of tearjerker games like Deer and the Boy showing up. Man, Slitterhead. All right. Slitterhead was a game, if you don't remember, that was first shown off around the same time that I think Hellblade 2 was shown off as sort of a preview of the next generation. So we're talking about over 4 years ago, I believe. It might be a little bit less than that, but I think it was over 4 years ago. I was surprised to see. I thought this was going to be one of those games that you see a trailer for, and it was a video trailer, not like a gameplay trailer, and then it never comes out, you know? I was surprised to actually see this title. It looks weird as hell. The body snatching seems pretty cool. The weird HR Geiger weapons are kind of nuts looking. I mean, I'll check it out for sure. Depending on how it seems the game is actually like shaping up. But I'm interested. Color me interested on Slitterhead. That's where I would put myself. I'm not entirely sold, but I'm surprised and interested. Uh well, it's not Jusant. It's Karn. So Karn is a rock climbing game that I thought was Jusant. It looked just like Jusant, although like more textured, a little bit more like Borderlandsy with the outlines. But it's its own rock climbing game. Look, I don't think I'm gonna play this one. I'm sorry. Like I didn't finish Jusant. I got pretty close. Maybe I can go back and finish some point. I got more than 2/3 of the way up. But then I got to a part that was like really annoying and I got stuck and I just didn't want to keep going at that point. There's no way I'm doing another one of these. Unless it blows people away. If it blows people away and they're like, no, this doesn't play like Jusant, it feels like its own thing. It's like, okay. But it looks real similar. So I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna be for me. If you like the Stanley Parable, Wander Stop looks pretty cool. Not something I'm really that into. Okay, I'm gonna skip some of these. A lot of stuff that I've never heard of. Never heard of First Descendant and a lot of high fantasy or science fiction fantasy popping up. Okay, Outer Sloth. Outer Sloth's cool. Outer Sloth is a publishing label for other indie studios, made by the Among Us folks, and I think that's great. And that's like all there's to say about it. They showed off some games that look cool. I like seeing successful indies support other indies and becoming successful. So great, love it. The anime style RTS look cool. Final Season 3 almost got me to think about reinstalling the finals, if I'm being honest. I mean, the katanas look pretty fucking cool. So maybe I'll give that another shot. All right. Here we are. Alan Wake 2's Night Springs DLC. So we're getting 2 DLC chapters. I think there's like 3 total that are going to be made. So this DLC. Okay, so the premise of the DLC is players experiencing 3 failed attempts by Alan to escape the dark place before the events of Alan Wake 2. And we're actually going to play as different characters. So these are stories that Alan wrote, during his spiral. Okay, now I understand what they're doing. That's really cool. And each one is starring different characters. Some of which are all characters that like in the game I was so fascinated by and I really wanted to know more about and seemed like more tied into things and like they knew more than we understood. So now this explains why they knew more than they let on and why they were tied into our story, but like they were never really explained in any way. The idea that Alan had tried to use them as characters to solve getting out of the dark place in the like initially, I mean that's brilliant. I'm very excited for this. Like I reinstalled Alan Wake 2, so I'm gonna play it. It's gonna be out tomorrow. So I mean I'm gonna be playing that this weekend, which is awesome. Okay. Tim Robinson shows up, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm enjoying it because we like Tim Robinson, right? Who doesn't? Sloppy Steaks. So Skate is what they ended up showing off through Tim Robinson, which was a weird little reveal. And it was just kind of like, hey, we're still working on it. We're going to do some console play testing this fall. It looked cool. I liked the vibe of the art. It seemed like a weird kind of low fidelity on things. Like it seems like there's a lot of low texture work and a lot of like flats. But it's hard to tell like what is and what isn't going to be like final design. It showed a lot of people skating together, so maybe that's part of, getting online play and stuff to work great. So there's that. Major expansion to Pal World is coming. I think that doesn't matter. I think that game sucks. That game sucks. That game is so boring. It's not good. That's not a good game. That game super sucks. Valorant, we don't care about. Blah, blah, blah. Sonic and Shadow Generations. Another Sonic game that I'm going to tell myself is going to be good. It won't be, and then I probably won't play it. I probably try every couple Sonics that are supposed to be good, and there's been some, but the real star this year in the Year of Shadow is going to be the movie, and let's be real about that. And that's it, because I'm not going to talk about Phantom Blade Zero, so I don't give a fuck. It's too bad the Microsoft conference hasn't happened yet. I would like to talk about that when it happens, because supposedly there's going to be a shadow drop. I want to see what Perfect Dark is. I want to see what they're going to show off, so I'm really excited about that. But there's not much else to say about it, so we're not going to take guesses here. So rather than burn through the mail or answer questions on my own, because that's not going to be as interesting as when the boys are back in town, let's just go ahead and say that next week we have our head-to-head challenge featuring Donkey Kong Country. In the original Donkey Kong Country, the goal is to get up to and complete the third boss, at which we will all record our times from that moment, and whoever is the fastest time to complete the third boss in the original Donkey Kong Country for Super Nintendo, which can play through the Nintendo Switch expansion pass, will be the winner. And the loser will have to do a presentation of the winner's choice. And that will then move on to Alex's next challenge, which I have a feeling is going to be something retro, but we will soon find out. Until then, stay unranked and suck it.